In fact, joining us is someone who comes with a goal to remove 90% of the floating ocean plastic by 2040. And with that vision and with that aim, we have with us Boyan Slat, founder of the Ocean Cleanup. Well, the stage is all yours. Over to you then.
All right. So let me take you for a dive at one of the most beautiful coral reefs in the Caribbean. Now, this was Roatan in the Gulf of Honduras, which is a tropical paradise that lives off tourism, but which every rainy season turned into a toxic garbage dump. Now, as we know, plastic is an immensely useful material, and because of that, its use has skyrocketed in the past half-century. But unfortunately, a tiny fraction, less than 0.1% of all the plastic that we use, ends up in the ocean, where it then goes on to do a tremendous amount of harm in terms of destroying corals, suffocating marine life, and causing billions of dollars of damage to coastal economies. And over time, this plastic breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, which can then end up in the food chain, potentially even threatening the health of billions of people around the world that rely on seafood as their primary source of protein. And at current trends, the amount of plastic that's entering the ocean is actually set to double by 2060. Now, my first encounter with this problem was when I was 16 years old, and I went scuba diving during a family holiday to Greece. And I came across, I was going underwater expecting to see beautiful nature, but instead I came across more plastic bags than fish. And this then led me to found the Ocean Cleanup, a nonprofit with the mission to rid the world's oceans of plastic. Now, initially, our focus was on cleaning up the legacy pollution that's already in the ocean, in particular this area known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And after years of trial and error, we actually succeeded in developing a method to clean it up. And since then, we have been cleaning up an area of ocean the size of a football field every 5 seconds. But while cleaning up the legacy pollution is, of course, essential, that still leaves us with the other side of the equation, stopping the thousands of tons of plastic that continue to flow into our ocean on a weekly basis. Which brings me to rivers. Because rivers are the arteries that carry the trash from land to sea. But when we started out, nobody even knew which rivers to focus on. So we developed AI-powered cameras that we attached to bridges to measure the flow of plastic in hundreds of rivers around the world. And with that, we developed the world's first global model showing where plastic is entering our oceans. And what we discovered was that just 1% of the world's rivers is responsible for about 80% of all the plastic that's flowing into our ocean. Now, most of these rivers can be found in coastal cities, in middle-income countries, where people now have enough wealth to buy a lot of stuff wrapped in plastic, but where the government just cannot yet afford good waste management infrastructure. We decided to go tackle this 1% of rivers to catch the plastic before it reaches the oceans. Now, to be clear, none of this is meant as a replacement for the slow but important work that's being done to fix a broken waste management system upstream. But in the meantime, we cannot allow this avalanche of plastic to continue to flow into the ocean day in, day out. So to solve this, we created a set of technologies we call interceptors. Our interceptors include these solar-powered and autonomous trash collectors, such as this one, that's deployed in Los Angeles, but also these mobile variations, such as here in Jamaica. But there is one interceptor project whose impact tops them all, which brings me back to the Gulf of Honduras. Now, this part of the Caribbean is home to over 30 marine protected areas, as well as the second largest coral reef on Earth. But over the past few decades, it has also been known as the most plastic polluted body of water on Earth. Now, most of the trash that you see here actually came from just one river, which is the Rio Motagua, in Guatemala. Around Guatemala City, there's many illegal trash dumps, and whenever it rains, some of the trash washes down this river, creating literal avalanches of trash. So we deployed a couple of interceptors along this river, and then this happened. $1.4 million kilos of trash intercepted in under 2 hours. And to be clear, everything that you're seeing here would have ended up in the Caribbean. It's wild. And we've been seeing flashes like this sometimes up to 5 times a week. Now, you are probably familiar with the concept of beach cleanups. They're very popular also here in India, and they're great because, of course, clean coasts are vital for tourism, for human well-being. But the problem with beach cleanups is that basically as soon as you're done with them, you have to start all over again because the trash just keeps coming over and over. So it's not really sustainable. But once you stop the inflow, once you have those interceptors in those rivers, then what you can do is one final, very thorough beach cleanup. And that's what we're doing right now in the Gulf of Honduras. And honestly, it is one of the most satisfying things I've ever seen. We're really turning back the clock on ocean plastic pollution. Now, all of this isn't just great news for the environment in the region, but also for the people whose livelihoods depend on it. Take Felix Ruiz, who's an artisanal fisherman who now reports that he's been catching a lot more fish since we deployed, as well as Elena Salinas, whose small family restaurant in the Honduran beach town of Omoa has benefited from the increase in tourists that the town has seen since their coast has been cleaned. Now, we are now deployed in 20 rivers across 10 countries, and with that, we have already stopped almost 50 million kilos of trash from entering the oceans. So that's about the weight of 5 Eiffel Towers. And, well, thank you. And just to put that into context, this equates to 2 to 5% of all the plastic that would have otherwise entered the ocean. So we're really starting to make a dent. And as you can see, our impact is growing exponentially. We almost doubled in 2024. We more than doubled last year. And for context, just 4 or 5 more doublings, and ocean plastic pollution is history. It's solved. So our next step is to bring interceptors by the way, so I think it should be clear that we've proven that we can do this. But now it's really time to scale it up. And that's why our next step is to bring interceptors to 30 of the most plastic polluted cities on Earth, and with that, eliminate 1/3 of all the plastic pollution that's entering our ocean before the end of the decade. And by tackling this problem in these 30 cities, we will be transforming the Gulf of Panama, Manila Bay, the seas around Bali, and a dozen other bodies of water, bringing them back to their original state, just like we've done with the Gulf of Honduras. And I think if we can solve 1/3 of the plastic problem, I think the other 2/3 will become an inevitability. And the exciting thing is that our work on this next wave of interceptor project has actually already begun. Take Mumbai, where we already mapped all the rivers and then determined how much trash is flowing out of each of them. We released GPS trackers that mimic the flow of plastic so we can strategically deploy there where the plastic goes while giving enough space for boats to pass. We've identified options to responsibly dispose of the waste, and we've signed agreements with the government, the Maharashtra Pollution Control Board, now all coming together in a citywide plan that, with the right support, is now ready to be implemented. And I'm very excited to announce that we have now already identified the first 2 locations for the very first interceptors that will be deployed in Mumbai, and they will be deployed before the start of this monsoon season. So we'll very soon have the very first interceptors coming to India. I believe that for humanity to thrive, humanity needs to be optimistic about the future. But these days, there's really a lot of pessimism going around, especially about the environment especially amongst people of my generation. But once the oceans are clean again, it can be this example of how, through hard work and ingenuity, we can solve the big problems of our time. Thank you very much.